On a warm, bustling afternoon in the heart of Seattle, a woman named Evelyn sat quietly by the window of a small, cozy cafe. The sun spilled through the glass, casting a soft glow on her as she gazed outside, lost in thought. She was waiting for her lunch when life, in its unpredictable way, threw her a curveball. As she got up to head to the restroom, Evelyn accidentally bumped into a young boy hurrying down the hall. Apologizing softly, she bent down to make sure he was okay. But when she straightened up and saw the man standing behind the boy, her heart skipped a beat. It was Daniel, her ex-husband, the man she hadn't seen in 15 years since their bitter divorce. Her body tensed, a mixture of surprise and unease coursing through her. Daniel, however, remained stoic, his cold gaze betraying no emotion. Still, Evelyn gathered herself and managed a polite greeting. In their younger years, Evelyn and Daniel had shared a dream to build a family. They had tried for years to have children, but nothing seemed to work. Evelyn had urged Daniel to see a doctor, but his stubborn pride got in the way. Coming from a large family, Daniel assumed the problem lay with her. He accused her of being infertile, and slowly, the frustrations and misunderstandings between them eroded their marriage until it crumbled completely. Now, as they stood face to face for the first time in over a decade, Evelyn hoped things might be different. But Daniel's icy words cut through her like a blade. "Still alone? Still single, I see," he sneered. His tone dripped with arrogance, a thinly veiled attempt to assert dominance. With a smug gesture, Daniel introduced the young boy beside him. "This is my son, Oliver," he said, pride swelling in his chest. "He's brilliant, just like my wife, Rebecca." He nodded toward a woman seated at a table nearby, her gaze never leaving them. Evelyn bit her lip, trying to contain her disbelief. The years had passed, but Daniel hadn't changed at all, still as condescending as ever. But Daniel was about to be hit with a revelation that would shake his very world. Just then, a tall, kind-eyed boy approached Evelyn. Sensing the discomfort in the air, he asked softly, "Is everything okay, Mom?" Evelyn's face softened into a warm smile. "I'm fine, Mason. I was just catching up with an old acquaintance." She kissed her son on the cheek, her affection clear. Turning back to Daniel, she said with a calm confidence, "I'd like you to meet my son, Mason." Daniel's face twisted in shock. His eyes darted between Evelyn and Mason, struggling to process the sight of the boy, now about 15, standing beside her. Before he could form any words, the waiter arrived with Evelyn's lunch, offering her a graceful exit from the awkward encounter. As Evelyn returned to her seat with Mason, Daniel stood frozen, his mind racing. Could Mason be his son? Had Evelyn been pregnant when they split, and she never told him? His thoughts spiraled as he joined Rebecca and Oliver at their table, but his mind was miles away. Trembling slightly, he couldn't escape the gnawing feeling that the past wasn't as settled as he had once believed. Over the next few days, Daniel became consumed by the possibility that Mason might be his child. His mind was a storm of questions. Why would Evelyn hide this from him? Could she come after him for financial support? What would Rebecca think? And Oliver? How would he feel if he learned he had an older brother? Despite his confusion and growing anxiety, Daniel couldn't ignore his need for answers. How could this be, when he had been so certain of Evelyn's infertility? His relationship with Rebecca had been different. Just a few years after his divorce from Evelyn, Rebecca became pregnant with Oliver, and they had quickly married. The conflicting timelines and circumstances only deepened his suspicion. As much as Daniel wanted to cling to his life with Rebecca and Oliver, the possibility that Mason was his son gnawed at him relentlessly. Meanwhile, Rebecca started noticing the shift in Daniel's behavior. He seemed distant, distracted, as though something heavy weighed on his mind. One evening, unable to hold it in any longer, Daniel finally told Rebecca about his suspicions. Her reaction was one of disbelief. "You think Mason could be your son?" she asked, her voice thick with shock. "I don't know," Daniel admitted, uncertainty clouding his voice. "But I have to find out." Rebecca's eyes darkened with worry. Daniel, digging into this could tear everything apart. "Are you sure this is something you want to pursue?" But Daniel's resolve was firm. "I need to know." If Evelyn won't tell me the truth, I'll do a DNA test. Against Rebecca's wishes, Daniel arranged to meet Evelyn. When she received his call, Evelyn was surprised. She had assumed after their awkward cafe encounter, they would go their separate ways for good. She hesitated, but something in Daniel's voice made her agree to meet. When they sat down together, Daniel wasted no time. I need to know the truth, Evelyn. Is Mason my son? Evelyn raised an eyebrow, chuckling softly. So that's what this is about? Daniel's face flushed with anger. Don't laugh. I have the right to know. But Evelyn's smile faded as she replied firmly, No, Daniel. Mason is not your son. He's Gregory's my husband. We got married after you left, and I had Mason with him. He's almost 14, not 15. I've also had 2 more boys, Evan and Theo. Her words hit Daniel like a freight train. How could it be? He had been so sure Evelyn was infertile. How had she gone on to have 3 children? In the days that followed, Daniel couldn't let go of his doubts. At Rebecca's urging, he visited a doctor. The news he received left him reeling. He was sterile. He always had been. Confronting Rebecca with this revelation, he was devastated to learn the truth. Rebecca admitted that Oliver wasn't his biological son. Early in their relationship, she had had a brief affair, and the pregnancy had resulted from that. The ground beneath Daniel's feet seemed to collapse. Everything he had believed, his pride, his family, his role as a father, was built on a lie. Now, faced with this devastating truth, Daniel had no choice but to rebuild his life from the wreckage. This story reminds us of the importance of truth in building honest, trusting relationships. Pride and assumptions can blind us to reality, but in the end, only the truth allows us to move forward.